lot of folks just want to hear about the data. They just want an update. They want to know, how is this county doing? How is the zip code that I'm in? And a lot of times I will start the narrative for the area that I'm talking about with some macroeconomic data or some updates on what's going on in the greater economy, because those things affect where you live. And I got to tell you folks, there's some interesting things breaking out. And today we're going to focus on an area north of the Orlando metro, some of the areas on the south side of the county of Volusia, which is what we're talking about today, are actually very much a part of the Orlando metro area, specifically when you're talking about Deltona and DeLand. And many of you Orlanders, you would say, you know what? We don't claim you Volusia County people. You are not a part of the greater 4-county area, which makes up Orlando. We do not count you as us. But I have to tell you, through the exploding home prices over the past 5 years, many people who work in Longwood, North Orlando, Lake Mary, Heathrow, many of those locations becoming far too expensive, pushed people to then take the 20-minute drive just north to where they find themselves in South Volusia. In Volusia County, my friends, I get more requests for updates as of late. People just beating down my door in any way possible, saying, Jared, you got to tell us what's going on. So back to the point I'm making as I open this video. What is leading headlines today? Well, there's a lot of corporations that are struggling. In just the past week, Disney CFO just came out and said, surprise, we're starting to see that park attendance through summer is starting to look bad. We're going to have some weak numbers in the third quarter. Fast forward to last week, then all of a sudden we saw Airbnb's stock absolutely crumble. Might I add, completely unconnected to the Disney point I'm making, but in some ways they are connected. Now Airbnb is having a problem because they're showing that there are signs of weakness in their earnings. They're saying that people just can't afford the luxury of renting our places, and that demand for Airbnb all across the US is cratering, and so their stock plummeted. Now, if we're talking about Volusia County, Jared, why should I care? Because you have to understand, Florida is leading the nation in negative real estate data. What I'm saying is, our inventory is surging faster than anywhere else. Buyers are canceling in Florida at a higher number once they go under contract, which is not good for home sales. Price cuts, and the percentage of which sellers have to reduce their price in order to attract a buyer, is starting to hit very big numbers anywhere you look throughout the state of Florida, all of which indicating that we ourselves are seeing a massive transition and a shift to a more buyer-controlled market. Long gone are the days where sellers could demand a buyer waive their appraisals and all kinds of things. Buyers now are a bit more concerned about the high costs that they will face when they purchase. Now, as we speak to Daytona, you have to understand that all of these costs hit very close to home in this particular market. You'd say, Jared, what do you mean? There is no doubt that as buyers are interviewed, what they consider to be the hidden cost of home ownership absolutely becomes very visible in this particular market. It's no surprise that insurance is absolutely expensive. It's further no surprise that if you own a home closer to the East Coast, you might just experience higher coverage cost for your property. Not to mention the condo crisis, which is unfolding in Florida, where at the heart, you have HOA assessments skyrocketing, squeezing existing owners. Many of these people that own these properties in Daytona are snowbirds. They live somewhere else, so they don't have the homestead protection that keeps their property tax from absolutely skyrocketing, which is exactly the case over the past 5 years as property appraisers keep pushing those numbers to help them in turn pay for the high cost of schooling children and things of that nature throughout Volusia County. Not to mention the fact that these older buildings in Daytona, the older condos, specifically ones that are over 3 stories high, now are falling under the new laws that were changed because we had that building collapse in Miami, which is now on its own unfolding to a huge dilemma for homeowners. And that alone is pushing massive amounts of inventory of those older buildings onto the market, and many buyers are stepping back and they're not making a move on them, leaving them largely unsold. And again, all of these features are greater help in pushing clickbaity stories all across the internet about how Florida's market's taking a dive. While it is true the market is transitioning, you have to understand that each of these areas are suffering in their own unique ways, and you might find an area that's completely doing the opposite. And it's with that goal that if you own a home here now, or you're considering purchasing one in the future, this channel exists. And I'm going to do just what I've always done, particularly for Volusia County, which is a deep dive so that you fully understand how the marketplace here looks at this moment in time. And if you appreciate the hard work and effort I've gone to bring you this update, do me a favor real quick, drop down below, smash the thumbs up. It helped the video, and I thank you for doing it.
Change is coming, my fellow Americans. You will own nothing and you will be happy.
All right, as I often like to do, I like to go ahead and give you an index, something to compare Volusia County to. What better place than just to compare Volusia County with the entire state? So is Volusia County beating the narrative about Florida, or is it doing worse? You'll be the judge. Here we go. So here we are in Florida. We've got closed sales. Now this is June. This is the most recent data. Everybody's going to ask in the comments, Jared, what are you pulling this data from? This is a password protected backend access to the Florida Association Realtors database. So I'm pulling you all the MLS data for the marketplace as we look at this. So we're at the top of the list, June 2024 versus June 2023. We are down in sales, negative 13%. We are down in cash sales, which is contributing to why this number is off. If buyers, which are unaffected by the interest rate themselves, are backing away from the market in a very large number, which is almost 1 in 5 cash buyers have said, I'm not here for this market this year. That's going to cause a problem in sales in Florida. And an even worse problem, look at this. Overall volume, if you just add up all the dollars that are sold in real estate, it is down nearly 10% against last year. Jared, why does it matter? Because 2023 was an abysmally slow year, and now we're actually trending beneath that. Now, some key things to look at for Florida. Take a look at this. And by the way, in case this doesn't match any other data you're looking at, you have to understand this is single family, condos, and townhouses. This is the whole gambit. Look at the bottom. We're at 80% higher months of supply, months of inventory. If you stop listing all homes in Florida, how long would it take you to sell everything off? About 5.4 months. Last year, this time, you would have accomplished the same thing in just 3 months. Now, why does that matter? Well, across the country, the entire US is around 3.5 months. Remember, I like to have an index. If you compare Florida as a state to the rest of the country, we are way under what the rest of the country is. Why? Because we have more unsold homes, more people are listing them, they're going unsold, less closings are taking place. You just saw our closings are down by like 13%, 14%. So as a result, that number of unsold homes stacks even higher. And here you have a much bigger leap in months of supply. By the way, the higher months of supply gets, you don't need a huge active inventory supply, okay? You can look at active inventory and be like, well, that's definitely a lot of homes for sale that's unsold. That's as much as we had in 2019. If this number gets out of hand, it can only be as many homes as you had in 2018. If people stop buying them, the price cuts will mount very fast. And sellers that have to sell will set new lows, which then in turn affects the value of all the homes around it, becomes where new appraisals are set. And here you go. Look at this. Active inventory last year, folks. Okay, remember, I just told you we're selling less dollar volume than a year ago. But look at this. A year ago, there were 96,000 units on the market. This year, there's 165,000 unsold units. Why? Pendings are down. Pendings are down. That's a leading indicator that in the future, sales will still be down. And new listings are up. So for whatever reason, even with a lot of homes already still on the market, more people are listing than a year ago. Now, the first thing we're going to look at is called the Daytona Beach MSA. Now, this really is all of Volusia County. I like to use the Daytona Beach MSA because it's the metropolitan statistical area for Daytona, covers Volusia. It's very easy to analyze the data from this particular standpoint. Again, we're looking at all property types just the same. Remember, comparing with Florida, Florida was just inside of 14% year over year. Daytona has a bigger gap, selling less homes June to June against last year. Now, they're not struggling to find so many cash buyers. They're only down 10%. Look at dollar volume. Remember, the state of Florida was down about 9.5% in dollar volume. The Daytona Beach MSA is down nearly 13% year over year. Now, look all the way at the bottom, okay? You will see that, hey, Jared, look at that. You remember the state of Florida? It was like 5.3 months of supply against last year, which was like 3 months of supply. That's, what's going on in Daytona Beach MSA? Look at this. It's 5.2, so it's a little bit ahead. But remember, last year it was already softening. So Daytona Beach started to slow down at a greater degree than the rest of the state of Florida. So this year, we're only showing about 60% ahead. Look at active inventory. Active inventory is 51% over last year. Pendings are down nearly 14%, which isn't great, but also look at the new listing flow seems to be abating a bit. So they're actually listing less homes than a year ago in June. Now, by the way, I didn't mention it earlier, but median sale price is up 3.2% for the state of Florida. You'll notice that most of the United States is reporting 4.5 to 6% range, depending on which data you look at. for the rest of the country. So it looks like median sale price is up a bit against last year, which is good so far. All right, the next thing I want to show you is called a home forecast tool. Now, you'll notice that everything on this graph is blue, and that's not because everybody in these areas are voting Democrat. It's because the app is predicting prices to fall in all of these areas. It's cooling. It's a buyer's market. That's what the trend is. If I pull back on Florida, I think there might be 1 or 2 counties that are even balanced, called neutral or towards the seller's market. You say, well, Jared, how come Orlando is like a lighter shade of blue? Is that because there's some Republicans in there? No, that means they're just a little bit more towards the neutral territory than the rest of these surrounding counties. But let's take a look. If you look at this, you'll say, Jared, I see it says that this particular marketplace is a 36. Now, how in the world do they get a 36? And I see the graph. It looks like in 2022 and 23, they were up here, and upper end is a seller's market. Okay. This is the midpoint of the graph. And what creates a seller's market, according to this data, you can see it on the left, it tracks how much property appreciation you have. Is prices strong or falling? It tracks how long it takes to sell, which is days on market. It tracks how much inventory is exploding in a given area versus its history. It's tracking price reductions. Obviously, if you have a marketplace where sellers are having to cut more on the price, then obviously that's showing that buyers are having strength in a given marketplace. And lastly, it factors in mortgage rates. So mortgage rates are going to affect certain markets more because certain buyers at a higher degree will have to finance in given areas. If you have homes in a given area that are incredibly overvalued against what the current base of population can actually afford, then that creates a dynamic where the mortgage rates heavily works against affordability, creates it more of a buyer's market because the chance of those homes increasing in value when it lacks affordability is not a very likely outcome. So look at what you could see here. You can see that up here, this marketplace peaked in March 2020, the most recent peak. Now, it obviously peaked back here in July of 2021, but ever since early 2022, it's been going straight down month after month till at some point, early January of last year, this went into the neutral market territory. And then over the past 6 to 8 months, it continued to fall steadily into the grasp of what would be considered a buyer-controlled market. Now you say, Jared, is this the way it is all through the metro area, or some of the marketplaces stronger than others? That's a great question. In a second, I'm going to pull up a zip code view so you can see exactly what's happening in this area. So here you go. You say, Jared, I see some tan spots and some clear spots and some red spots. These are the last bastions of a more neutral market. So you're like, Jared, what are those zip codes? Well, here they are. But I got news for you. And those of you that live here already know what I'm about to say. No one lives in those areas. So look at the more dense areas. So if you go to the more dense areas of Daytona Beach, look at these. These are extraordinarily buyer control markets. Again, I don't know these zip codes well. Okay. I shouldn't say well. I don't know them at all. But look at this. This is 32129. This is some of the lowest buyer controlled numbers, meaning these are more likely to see price down than anywhere you will see in Florida. The upper 20s, like 24, 25, 26, 27, these markets, by the way, are all showing in that range. So these are 27, 32119's 29, 30. Look at the coastal areas. So 32118, I believe, again, and then even right up north of that, those areas are shifting. Now, Palm Coast, some parts are on their way. They're not shifting as extremely as fast as these particular markets, but they are. And I will tell you that a lot of these areas that are lighter, you'd say, Jared, why is Deltona lighter? Okay, I see it's a buyer's market. It's a 38, it's a 39, it's a 37. Why are they lighter? Well, that's because they're taking longer to adjust because they're more affordable. If you look at the income levels for these areas and you look who's moving there versus the cost of housing, these represent a little bit lower value than all the other areas. Why? Because people moving into these areas, many of them are commuting to Orlando. If they're not retired already, they made the option to buy here because to them, the dollar goes further. Now, some of these areas, it is incredibly expensive versus running income, okay? Particularly the coastline. So like the closer you get to the coast, when income and value becomes an obstacle, who's buying it? And that's what's happening. So now you have more supply hitting, you have less people able to purchase it, and it's changing things for the marketplace. Now let's take a look at home values for these areas. Jared, how is median price doing? I own in the area. Let me pull back because I know you're already upset with me for messing with the map. If you see these areas right here, you see Flagler Beach, you see the Palm Coast, they're warm because they're still peaking on price. Okay. So this area right here, which I don't even know if anybody lives in, 32124, still peaking on price. But some of these are starting to flatten out. So this area of the coast is starting to flatten out. If you look at it, you say, what is it doing? You're going to see it. In fact, it's tipping, so this particular end of the market is actually going into decline. All of these are, okay? You can see them, they're hitting a wall and they're starting to either go sideways or flatten. This is 32114. This is like an 8-year running graph. You can see if I narrow this down for like a 3-4 year run, look what's happened in the last couple months. It peaked and now it's just 3 months of running declines. I mean, just people are listing them cheaper than last year and they're selling them for even less. All this is the precipitation of people in these particular areas call a broker to put their house on the market. They sit down with the broker. The broker says, this is the reality of this area. The seller says, well, I see that. There's a lot of my neighbors for sale. And they drop the price a little bit lower than they were last year. And then all of a sudden, by the time they negotiate a few more points off of that, precipitates price declines. You'd say, Jared, well, what's the future look like? Well, ultimately, if months of supply keeps climbing and inventory keeps climbing in these areas, then you are going to see them continue on that path. Let's take a look at Deltona, okay? So at the top of the Deltona graph, look at what's happening, okay? You'd say, well, Jared, I see that it looks like it's just flattening out, okay? See that? It's almost like it went up, 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 and it's flattened out. This is not normal for moving season though, okay? So in moving season, you're supposed to gain energy, and this is a seasonal peak, okay? It's like top of a bell every year. That's the way usually it looks in the summer months and normal market cycles. Every year, you look at the amount of activity, homes being sold, they're trading at that. We just obviously had national news saying that when we see the July pricing data, which I haven't seen a lot of it yet because it's been released to us, it's not released in this particular system I'm using. When we see that data catch up, you're actually going to see negative numbers through the entire index of the United States, according to Realtor.com, which is fascinating. It's the first time it's ever been recorded for July, which is a moving season month. Okay. That's a peak trading season for real estate. You're not supposed to see this kind of stuff at this time of year. You say, well, Jared, what does it mean? It means that in the next 6 months, this is going to lose ground. Okay. So I expect in a lot of these markets, okay, I'm just going to tell you straight. These markets you see that are already blue, like Orange City, Deltona, DeLand. I think this is, this might be DeLand, 32724. Yeah, DeLand split down the middle. I see the line right here. You can see the west side cooling a little bit faster than this east side. But the point I'm making is these neutral that you see where it's clear, these are going to be lightly blue. You're going to start to see price suffering in those areas first, flattening out if anything, okay? So people in those areas are probably going to start to see a little bit more inventory sell unsold. They're going to see price competition, and they'll be lucky to get out really kind of compatible to what a neighbor just sold for going into the fall. In these clear or orangish areas, what will happen with these, if inventory keeps climbing and it's unsold, these are going to pitch even lower. So you say, Jared, what is the opportunity here for a buyer? If you're a buyer, these areas are going to get flatter, okay? So a lot of these areas, you got to understand this too. In these lighter areas right here, there's already pockets inside of these zip codes where people are selling under prior sale, okay? But if you average them out, there's also some neighborhoods selling at and slightly above, because these are literally, all these areas right here are flat to last year. They're maybe up 1 or 2, but these are losing value. These are down 1 or 2%, which means some in these are selling well below last year, okay? So some of these, when you have an entire index, if you average all the homes that sold, some of the more, there's going to be some popular homes in here that actually will index, even those blue areas, a little over last year. They are going to do okay. But there's going to be a lot that are actually negotiating 4, 5, 6. They're trading away a lot more to sell against what the price was a year ago. So there's significant change in the equity position in some of these homes, specifically in those bluer areas. And as we go into the fall, the light blue is going to get to the dark blue. They're going to start to shift a little darker, okay? Again, assuming natural market trends. You tune in here so you actually understand what is happening in your market. You can see down here in the South, this price is still raging. It looks like still climbing, probably off the charts. Oh no, it's not. Look at that. It's showing me red, but then look what's happening. It's actually in a 3-month decline. I think the reason why it's calling it red is because it's a little above last year. So last year it's over here, but the problem is, look at the trend. So even in 32169, the trend is negative. It's falling. Let's take a look at all these. We'll just take a look at a few on the coast. Look at it, flattening down. That's actually going and dropping a bit. And we're going into the fall. See that? This most recent month, which I'm looking at June, and 32127, posted beneath prior month in summer. Let's take a look at this. This is prime Daytona Beach. No, look at this. Why is that even clear? It's like clear. It should be blue. I don't understand why it's posting a neg. It's like, what? It's 339. Let's look at year over year. Yes, it's negative. All right, let me take a look. Let me show you something else, okay? Which I don't necessarily know if it's too helpful, but this is year over year, okay? So look at this. Year over year in Flagler is under the 0 line, okay? See it? So for the last 4 or 5 months, Flagler's negative to last year. Same here. 32164, negative to last year. 32136, just bounced back. So it's been a few months negative, but 32136 is a month away from dropping right back under the line again. So look at this. Look at all the South markets. For the last 5 or 6 months, it's been pushing decent numbers against prior year. It looks like April, May, and June is writing a different story down here at the very end of that curve. And again, just to repeat, this is value growth against a year ago, okay? So look at this. You can see what it's doing now, okay? It's not doing so hot versus last year. Why is that happening? The entire narrative of everything we're seeing price-wise, okay? The story here is it's hanging against a year ago for the most part, but you'll find it nearly impossible to find any zip code in here that isn't already on a downward trajectory. It's not already tipping 2-3 months straight. Again, we're going into the fall, okay? So we're going into fall season. We're going to have to see how that pans out. Take a look at this. This is value income ratio, okay? So this is taking how much the person's salary is versus the home value for the area. So for instance, right here, it's showing me Deltona, median household income in Deltona is $71,000. The actual home value there is pushing 4.4, okay? Now you say, Jared, why is that cold? Because 4.4 is on the lowerish side. Once these markets starts to get at 4.9 or 5, a factor of 5, meaning I make 70 grand, but my house costs me 350,000. That's my typical price for my area. And anything at 5 and up, even 4.8, 4.9, you start to see those marketplaces slowing down, okay? So what we are now seeing, and this is all across the country, is that any of the areas that are still below 4.6, 4.7, 4.8, like Deltona, like DeLand, those particular areas are mainly the most attractive because affordability is the number one problem for home buyers. Okay, so what happens? This happened. I'm not saying this is the great financial collapse all over again. This is not necessarily a 2008 parallel, but in 2008, particularly in 06 and 07, when the gas started to run out of the car, before unemployment went nuts and really shot up and shut everything down. Before all that, this stuff happened. Everybody flocked to areas that were not number one on their list. They were really, DeLand and Deltona, no offense to anybody that lives in this area. DeLand and Deltona is not the number one spot. It's just, I could say the same thing when I look at a map of the Orlando Metro and I see Kissimmee and St. Cloud becoming hyper populous at this last stretch of a market cycle because people can only afford to be there. Okay, that's the only choice. And if they don't move there, what happens? They can qualify for Orlando, or they can qualify for a more populous area over here on the coast. But at Ormond Beach, for instance, that house is 400 square foot less. Okay, they go, okay, I can live in Deltona and get 2,000 square feet, or I can go to Ormond Beach and get 1,500 square feet. You see what I'm saying? Or they can buy an old house in Ormond Beach, or they get a brand new one for the same price in Deltona. Okay, that's the decision that's being made. These, though, what's happening is this number is getting exhausted. Okay. The value income ratios can only do so much in the face of 7% interest rates. And all of a sudden it's like, enough's enough. And the ratio gets out of whack. And so like when you see this area up here, like this is just south of Flagler, I think. This is Flagler Beach actually. So Flagler Beach running 7.3. Okay. Yes, there's probably a mega retiree nation here, but there's also a lot of locals that are like, forget you, I cannot afford it. They're only making $68,000 some, and the going price there is like over $5,000. Okay, that's a problem. Same thing here. These coastal regions, they're all, and again, we're talking Florida here. The only thing we're factoring is income versus home price. We know that's in Florida. That's not the end of the story. That's the start of the story. All of these areas are then impacted by how high the insurance cost, how high the HOAs are, how high your taxes will be. All those things play themselves out. Let's get into the inventory, and then let me show you where the price cuts are, and we'll end this video. All right, so take a look at this. Let's start with Flagler. So look at this. The reason why this graph is an 8-year run is important is because all of this fell off when all the easy money, low interest rates came. So we dropped way down here, but like you see the history of this particular market, the zip code, for instance, ran up here around 650 homes. And now we are in a pattern of much lower buyer interest right now. And we're getting right in the range of what we used to have. So this is where the marketplace gets interesting, is when you start getting up to the history of its running averages. Okay. So let's look at Flagler 32136. Boom. So it rose above its 8-year, this dotted line, by the way, is 8-year average of homes for sale. You can see it rose just above that. Let's look at the coastal areas of Daytona Beach, 32176. Boom, off the charts. I expect this because I think a lot of this is condo chaos. Look how high this is above history. And again, folks, I already looked before I got on here. You say, well, Jared, did we build a bunch of condos and townhomes? Isn't there just way more units on this side of the graph in the 2024 than there was 4 years ago? No, there's not. It doesn't. All the growth in this area is reasonable. Like, it didn't go crazy over here. They didn't add thousands more housing units. This is just unsold homes. Look at that, folks. Way over the 8-year average. Okay. Let's keep moving south. 32127. 32127. Again, boom. Some of this I think could be related to that condo issue that's going on. We have older buildings, some of them getting hit with new assessments, some of them with mystery bills. They have no idea how much it will cost to bring some of those buildings into compliance with state law. And like buyers are like, nope, not going to do it. All right, let's look inland on Daytona Beach, 32174. Coming up. This is I would believe, a reasonable residential area. And again, this is what gets iffy. People are like, big deal, Jared. Look at where it was before. 2019, 2018, it was around 400 units. It's right there now. Yes, but there's way less buyer applications. There's like 40, 50% less buyers applying to buy this stuff than back then. So that much inventory against fading buyers is a problem. Okay. And I'm not saying, listen, I'm not predicting problems. And thanks, I know my thumbnail looks crazy, but if I put rainbows and unicorns, people don't watch it. And you know it's good, so I might as well make a scary thumbnail. Look at this. Look how high. 8-year average is running 138. It's above that. And the real tricky part too, look at its direction. It's like straight up. I mean, really all the way back till September of last year, it's just straight. It's just going unabated north. Okay. All right, let's look in DeLand. This DeLand West, this seems to be the hotter part of the market. I expect less inventory here. Remember we had a west side of DeLand somehow. It's like, is it Beverly Hills and the west side of DeLand? Let me know in the comments. Whoa. Yeah, that seems high. Yeah, that's a record high for 8 years. So be interesting to see if those property values hold west DeLand. All right, let's take a look at the east. East side is not against history. It's a little lower. Maybe I had it backwards. Maybe it's the east side that was more stable, because this is above an 8-year average, but it's not record high. I feel like I'm accurate though. I feel like it was the east side over here that was stronger price wise, but they're all sloping down. So we'll see how this shakes out in the fall. You can see it looks like it's been running for about 8 months north. We're at 32725, and this is again above an 8-year average. It looks like it spiked once here, but most of the time it's it's right around 170 units. And right here, it's at 180 units. So it's a little up there. And that was just outside of Deltona, I think. All right, you can see Orange City. Looks like it's responding. Looks like it's coming down. Looks like they had some good sell-off in June. That's good. Yeah, so that's that. Let's see what else. All right, let's take a look at price cuts. Price cuts. Let's start up here in Flagler. 32.4%. That's a lot of price cuts. 1 out of 3 homes price cutting. Next market down, 28%. Inside, you have 34%. Out here, 32174, nearly 40% price cuts in Ormond. This is interesting. Let's take a look at these coastal areas. High, 30%, 32176. Then south, 32118 is running 19.9%. So obviously, you can see the blue is less price cuts. Where is the blue? Well, I don't understand how this number is this low. I would imagine that these are holdouts. The people here are just like, screw it, I'm not reducing, and it's going to sit there. But look at inland, 32114, 35% price cuts. 32129, 38% price cuts. You going further south, I believe we saw this area looking hot before on inventory, still climbing, but this is 24% price cuts. Again, I think these people are just reacting slowly and deliberately. It's like, you know what, we're going to leave it that way. But you can see, look at these areas. Look at Lake Helen, 32744, 57%. Anything over 29, 30% is a large percentage of price cuts. Okay, we didn't see that. In fact, most of our average price cuts, maybe 1 in 5 through most of the more balanced markets. We start seeing 30%, 35%, 40%. Those are marketplaces. Anything here you see in red, there's most likely going to be a motivated seller behind those areas at this point. Well, that's it for now. Let me know in the comments below where you would like an update on next. And if you need help buying a home in Florida, my team and I would love to resource you with data like this to make sure you make a great decision if you do decide to purchase now. And if you're looking to sell in Florida, list your home for 2.5% total. Information's on the screen. Thanks for watching. We'll see you on the next one.